China didn't just finish 2025 with a big trade surplus. It finished with a headline-grabbing one, about $1.2 trillion. That's the kind of number that makes politicians, investors, and competitors sit up fast. What makes it more surprising is the timing. 2025 also featured a fresh Trump tariff jolt, tougher U.S. trade pressure that was supposed to slow China's export engine. Instead, China ended the year exporting more, keeping imports relatively muted, and widening the gap between what it sold to the world and what it bought back. So how did that happen? Let's break it down clearly. A trade surplus is the difference between exports and imports. If a country sells $100 to the world and buys $70, it has a $30 surplus. China's 2025 surplus was about $1.189 trillion, driven by exports rising 5.5% to roughly $3.77 trillion, while imports were nearly flat at around $2.58 trillion. December wrapped the year with exports up 6.6% year over year and imports up 5.7%, both stronger than forecasts, showing trade momentum was still alive heading into 2026. In plain language, China sold a lot more than it bought, and that gap grew to historic levels. Tariffs are meant to make imported goods more expensive, reducing demand. The U.S. has been raising trade barriers on China in waves, and in 2025, that pressure intensified again. Trade numbers show real impact. China's exports to the U.S. fell around 20% in 2025, and China's imports from the U.S. dropped about 14.6%. But here's the key point. Tariffs can shrink one lane without stopping the highway. China didn't rely on only one buyer. It adjusted the map. When one big market becomes harder, exporters hunt for others. In 2025, China's trade data showed strong expansion outside the U.S. Exports to Africa jumped roughly 26%. Shipments to ASEAN rose about 13% plus. Exports to the European Union grew around 8%, and Latin America climbed around 7%. That's not a small shift. That's a strategic reroute. It also fits a wider pattern. Companies shift supply chains, use alternative shipping routes, and in some cases expand production overseas to reduce tariff exposure. If the final product ships to the U.S. from a different location or includes components assembled elsewhere, the tariff math can change. Even when rules are strict, businesses keep trying to find cheaper paths. A massive surplus isn't just about exports rising. It's also about imports not rising as much. That can signal softer domestic demand. If households and businesses aren't buying aggressively, imports stay muted. China has been trying to boost consumption, but the trade picture suggests the export sector remained the stronger engine compared with domestic spending. There's also a commodity and timing factor. Import growth can fluctuate based on energy prices, industrial demand, and stockpiling cycles. December imports rose, but the full-year picture still shows exports outrunning imports by a wide margin. Trade isn't just economics, it's bargaining power. Rare earths matter because they feed supply chains for high-tech manufacturing, defense, and green energy. In 2025, China's rare earth exports surged to their highest level in years, even as Beijing tightened controls on some elements at times, signaling it can adjust the supply dial when tensions rise. On the food side, China also bought record soybeans in 2025, but the sourcing mix matters. China leaned heavily on South America, while U.S. farm exports faced more uncertainty. This is another example of diversification, buying what you need, but shifting where you buy it from. A surplus of these large triggers two reactions globally. First, more pressure. big deficits elsewhere often turn into political demands for tariffs, investigations, and unfair trade claims. Second, more scrutiny of overcapacity. The idea that China is producing more than its domestic market can absorb and pushing the excess into global markets. So the real 2026 question is not doing tariffs work. It's, can China keep exporting at this scale while the world raises more barriers? And if global demand cools or restrictions tighten, can Beijing shift growth back toward domestic consumption fast enough? That's why this $1.2 trillion figure isn't just a statistic. It's a warning light for the next phase of the trade fight and a preview of how messy 2026 could get.